Did you know that one of the most esteemed legal experts in high-profile federal cases might step away just days before Diddy's trial?
Diddy Combs has quit leading the rapper's legal team ahead of his sex trafficking trial. In New York federal court, Anthony Rico filed a motion to withdraw as one of Diddy's 6 defense lawyers yesterday. He didn't give an explanation, but wrote, "Under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel."
And can you walk us through exactly what went down?
Anthony Rico has been part of Diddy's defense team since September. So he appeared in court with Diddy when he was first arraigned and pled not guilty to the charges. And Anthony has been kind of this almost kind of public kind of support figure for Diddy as his lawyer. In court, he stands up and points out that Diddy's, children have traveled long distances to be there. He sits next to Diddy, during the hearing, they're talking, they're laughing. So they seem to have kind of a more personal relationship maybe than with, Diddy's other lead defense attorneys who are kind of the ones up in front of the judge. And this past week, he just suddenly files a motion saying that he's withdrawing from the case. And there's not too much detail given, but clearly there was a fork in the road about, something having to do with his case. And he says, like he heard that under no circumstances can he effectively.
A plot twist straight out of a movie. Diddy Combs is caught in a legal storm as his trusted attorney, Anthony Rico, moves to withdraw from his defense team.
And those are all misnomers, lead counsel, so forth. It's just because they all do the equal amount of work. When they say lead counsel, what ends up happening is if you're in the middle of the court, you don't want 3 lawyers talking at the same time. So they basically said, you'll talk is all lead counsel means. So if there's an objection or something of that nature, that will be the person talking. So that really is a misnomer, lead counsel. Do I think it's that big of a deal? Yes and no. Legally, I don't think it's a big deal at all. But I always tell people lawyers get off of cases for 3 reasons. 1, Mr. Green has not made a gratuitous appearance. You haven't been paid. That ain't this situation. You can assure that. 2, what'll end up happening is if the client insists on lying. Like if a client says, I want to lie or something of that nature. And I don't think it's that situation because we're not even to the point where Diddy is going to take the stand and there's avenues if your client wants to lie and insist on you suborning perjury. 3, we just can't get along. And that is almost always what happens. I've said since day one, I think they're trying the case way too quick. They haven't asked for 1 continuance yet. There are terabytes of information. I cannot see that they could possibly be prepared by the time the May term comes. And it could be the possibility the lawyer just said, I don't want to do it anymore. I really think it means we're not seeing eye to eye, whether it's Diddy or other folks on the law team, we're not seeing eye to eye, and I can't.
Rico's affidavit, filed in Manhattan's federal court, made it clear, under no circumstances can I continue to effectively serve as counsel for Sean Combs.
He was a well-established death penalty attorney. He reportedly led the defense in up to 45 federal death penalty cases. According to his bio on the Fordham Law University website, some of the notable yet controversial cases included Rico serving on the counsel in the World Trade bombing conspiracy case and embassy bombing case in 1998. Some of his other cases included People versus Corey Arthur. Arthur was charged in the murder of the son of former Time Warner CEO Gerald Levine. Rico was able to get the death penalty off the table and litigate Arthur's sentence to life in prison. He also previously represented the undercover NYPD officer acquitted in the 2006 killing of Sean Bell. According to his bio, he doubles as an adjunct professor of law at Fordham and has been practicing.
Rico's decision wasn't made on a whim. In his brief yet telling affidavit, he emphasized that his withdrawal wouldn't disrupt jury selection or pretrial proceedings, ensuring seamless legal representation.
So it's hard for me to speak to each individual's experience. I'm confident that no matter who you are or where you're being held in MDC Brooklyn, it is an extremely challenging place. And again, what makes it so challenging is that it's like essentially like a black hole. So if you have an emergency medical issue, if your blood sugar is too high and you're a diabetic or you have some sort of a heart attack or a medical emergency, there's absolutely no guarantees that you're going to be receiving medical care. I've heard horror stories from clients where one of their cellmates has collapsed and they're banging on their cell door during a lockdown, begging for a correctional officer to come and intervene, and nobody comes for minutes. And again, I'm not saying that's because people in the MDC Brooklyn don't care. I'm just saying there's not enough of them there. And it shouldn't be the case that while you're awaiting trial on serious federal charges, that you also have to be worried, am I going to make it out of here alive? Or am I going to make it out of here without being, stabbed or beaten? Dealing with a federal criminal case is stressful enough. And having to sort of deal with all the other atmospherics at MDC Brooklyn makes it truly unbearable. If I can just sort of say as a side note too, as a lawyer, you can imagine how terribly frustrating and difficult it is to come to the jail, to meet with our clients, to try and discuss with them, very complicated and difficult aspects of their case, and to ask them to engage with us on making, very consequential decisions about their lives, when all they want to talk about is the terrible conditions that they're forced to endure.
What does this mean for Diddy? According to insiders, the impact could be massive. With 5 other attorneys still on the case, lead counsel Mark Agnifilo remains steadfast, insisting the trial will proceed without delay.
Their case, very similar to what you saw in the indictment, saying why he should not be released, because they say that he is a flight risk, he could leave the country, and that he has a history of obstructing justice. They also pointed to how serious these crimes were, that with previous allegations of sex trafficking like R. Kelly and Jeffrey Epstein, just also denied bail in that case. But his defense laid out a very lengthy rebuttal to all of that. We heard them say that this is different from Jeffrey Epstein and R. Kelly because there are no minors in the indictment here. They also say that these acts were consensual, and they point to victim number 1, who's named over and over again, who they say is someone within a 10-year relationship with Combs that was toxic but consensual. They said that this person actually tried to sell this same story to Combs to try to get it out of the media's eye, but instead when he refused, then this civil lawsuit came up. But the judge ultimately said that he could not be released because he is a danger, he has a history of substance, and she really drilled down on the fact that after those civil allegations came out last November, he talked to multiple women who he knew during that period and who he apparently tried to change their narrative so they wouldn't go forward and continue testifying or being some of these acts that were alleged in the civil complaint and then were again put in the indictment today. And so she said in order to keep that from happening and really to end sex trafficking, since that can happen behind closed doors, it was best to keep him detained with